Welcome everybody to another episode of After the Tassel podcast. Today we have special guest Meredith Gibbons Shadwick, who is a 2011 graduate from Westminster. Her major was in political science and she minored in leadership studies. She's talking to us today from Kirkwood, Missouri. So Meredith, thank you for joining James and I today. So we'll get right to it. Why don't you tell us what you've been doing after the Tassel since you graduated in 2011?
Yes, well, thank you both so much for having me. I have done a lot of different things since I graduated from Westminster. So immediately after graduating, I moved to Washington, D.C. And I worked on Capitol Hill for one of Missouri's U.S. senators. So I was a staff assistant. So basically, I answered the phones and did whatever was asked of me. So I did that for about like 10 months. And then I moved to Boston and I worked on Mitt Romney's presidential campaign. So it was the 2012 presidential race. And I did media buying and kind of ad placements. So I was part of our media team. So like the team that created all of the political ads. It was my job to strategically place those. And I was in charge during the primary. I helped in every state. And then in the general election, I was in charge of specifically Ohio and Florida, which are two pretty big states in the presidential campaign. There's a lot of votes. So I placed TV and radio ads on that campaign, which was a really cool experience. And then after that, I moved back to DC and I worked for a manufacturing company called Smith's Group, and I was in their government relations office. And I did, we had a corporate political action committee that I raised money for. So I'd like travel around to all of our different facilities. We had facilities in, I think it was like 41 states or so. And I would travel and give a presentation and try to get employees to participate in our political action committee. And then I also did some lobbying in that office as well. And then I moved back to Missouri and I worked I was finance director on governor's race in Missouri. We raised the most of any campaign I ever had in Missouri, which was cool. And I've been doing political fundraising ever since, started my own firm. So I work with all different kinds of like nonprofit and political campaigns to help, reach their fundraising goals, whatever that may look like. But then a little kind of a twist off of the political path, my husband and I started a food truck in 2020. And we're actually about to launch a restaurant. So it was a pandemic startup, I guess you could say. And it's been really interesting. And then we own a shaved ice business called Tropical Mousse that's in Kirkwood. It's been in Kirkwood for about 20 years. So kind of I've taken a lot of different paths in my career after college. So
well, I know we're going to talk to you about work-life balance here in a moment, but I wanted to draw the audience attention. In your bio that we request of all of our guests, you said over the last 5 years, you have raised over, and correct me if I'm wrong, is that $60 million for clients? That's amazing. Yeah.
Thank you.
So that's a lot of cash.
Yes, that's a lot of money. Yeah, it's fun. I really enjoy it. And it can be, you're asking people for really large amounts of money, which can be kind of awkward. It's like not a natural thing to do, but you can make it really fun and you get to meet all kinds of interesting people who are doing, building businesses in the state and doing all kinds of really cool things. So yeah, it's 60 million. And that's, raising for governor's races, US Senate races, local elections, and nonprofits. So it's kind of a wide variety, but yeah, it's a big number.
Yes, that's a lot of money. I remember I'll never see in my lifetime. So,
Yeah, well, me either. I've seen the checks, but I don't get them.
yeah. Well, I know we're celebrating Alumni Weekend this weekend. Today is the kickoff day, and there's all sorts of activities throughout the weekend. But we'd like to ask our guests, what led you to choose Westminster College from the beginning?
Sure. So I toured a lot of colleges. I wanted to play volleyball, and I wanted to be at a smaller school. I was actually like very shy all growing up. And I just knew I wouldn't feel comfortable at a large university. So I knew I wanted to go somewhere small. I definitely wanted to play volleyball. And I just wanted to go somewhere that I thought would be a good fit. And I think I looked at like 15 different colleges. My mom and I did like a whole tour and we looked at like 8 schools. And none of them, and I did not want to look at Westminster actually, because my dad went to Westminster. And so for some reason I just, I was like, well, I don't want to go where he went. I want to go somewhere else. And so I looked like literally everywhere else. And I finally told my mom, I was like, okay, we can go ahead and look at Westminster. And I just fell in love with the campus. I felt really comfortable. It just like felt very at home to me. I loved the size. I loved that I could play volleyball and still be in a sorority and still do, all the fun campus activities that Westminster has to offer. So for me, it was the right size. It was far enough away from home. And it just felt right. And Westminster has a long history. I was always interested in politics, and Westminster has a long, obviously, history of being engaged politically, which I found really cool. But it was really just, I felt so comfortable on campus, and I just knew it was the right place for me. And I'm so glad that I went there.
Did you know initially that you wanted to go into political science, or was that something you discovered maybe within your first year?
So I was always interested in it, but I didn't necessarily know that that's the path that I wanted to go down. So I don't think I declared I think it took me a while to actually declare my major, because I wasn't sure. But while I was at Westminster, I was taking a lot of the poli-sci classes, and then one of them, I think it was a Dr. John class. I'm pretty sure it was. He had us intern on. We could do whatever campaign we wanted, but we had to like intern on a campaign. And so I did that for a candidate running for Congress in mid-Missouri, and I really had a lot of fun. And then I guess I ended up declaring political science.
So you would say your internship is pretty much what led you to declare your major in political science.
Yeah, because I really enjoyed it. And then I did a couple more internships too. While I was at Westminster, I interned like over the summer. I worked on a couple like local to St. Louis like state senate races. And then when I was at Westminster, my junior and I think my senior year, both years, I interned in Jefferson City at the Capitol for the state senator that I worked on their campaign, which was an awesome experience. And Westminster so close to Jeff City, which worked out great. So I interned like maybe 2 days a week. I think it was like 2 days a week that I went up to Jeff City and did my internship. It was a great experience.
Yeah, so I started here in last August, and I think that's been the thing that's been really neat with Sing is just the political involvement with our students. I mean, we still have a number of students that are working on political campaigns, and I know the poli-sci program does a wonderful job with helping them find those opportunities and helping to make those connections. So it's been really, it's one of my favorite parts to do with the internship program.
Yeah, it's great. It's great. It kind of led me into what I'm doing now, which is cool.
If you don't mind me asking, can you go into kind of a little more detail of like what specifically about the experiences, maybe what skills or what lessons you learned from your internship that helped you professionally?
I think a lot of it is politics is all about people and being able to interact with people, whether it's you are trying to convince someone to vote the way, vote a certain way, or get them to volunteer or donate. I mean, politics is all about people, and it should be, because they're electing people to be your representative. So they should have the citizens in mind. But that being said, Westminster is very, it's very social, and I think that those like interpersonal communication skills are really, really important, which I actually took a class on at Westminster. And then my internship, I had to, which was like kind of part of the job, but I had to answer the phones, which was interesting. You get some interesting people calling. But you just kind of learn how to like roll with the punches and try to help people where you can. So I think that those interpersonal skills and being able to relate to people and communicate with people is one thing that I really learned how to do at Westminster. Like I said, I was super shy, and when I was younger and in high school, very, very shy. And I just think at Westminster, I was able to like open up and kind of, be myself and learn different ways to communicate. So I don't know.
That was something I was going to ask you about, because you made the comment that you were so shy, and now in your career, you're asking people to part with their money, and with your leadership studies, your minor, obviously there was somebody who mentored you or had an influence on you here on campus where they really allowed you to bloom and coach you into becoming that leader and the businesswoman that you are today.
Yeah. And I think it's just, there's a lot of different, like the people that are at the college. I mean, I just think everyone is very encouraging of the students. And I think that, it being a small school, you can be involved in a lot of different activities, from like volleyball to sorority. And I think for me, I just gained a lot of confidence being at Westminster. And, to be able to do what I'm doing, you do have to be, genuine when you're asking people for money. So it's definitely, you have to believe in what it is that you're asking for, or it doesn't really work very well. But I think that's another good trait of Westminster, is just, kind of that honesty level. So it just helped me gain more confidence in myself.
Yeah. Well, besides completing all of those multiple internships, were there any other experiences on campus, study abroad or volunteering? I know you said you were active in your sorority and volleyball. Tell us more about those experiences.
Yeah. So study abroad, I did do a study abroad in Greece. It was like a short 3-week over the summer, which it was awesome. It was my first time being out of the country. So it was really cool. And we did a class on Greece before we went, and then we got to go all over Greece and just learn about the culture, and it was really cool. And then I was on the volleyball team, so I played all 4 years. I was captain. It was awesome. I love oh shoot. Sorry.
That's all right.
Oh my gosh, sorry.
That's okay.
I have my phone on Do Not Disturb, but
well,
I don't know my computer.
Well, you're obviously a very I will just go right into the next question. So let's talk about that work-life balance, because I'm sure that was a business phone call, because you have a lot of projects going on right now, and you have your shaved ice business, you have your biscuit business, and are you finishing up the brick and mortar this spring? Is that correct?
Yeah. So we started It's called Honeybees Biscuits, and we started at the Kirkwood Farmers Market, and it really took off. And then we ended up buying a food truck and launched it in February of 21, and we had like 300 people in line for the food truck launch,
Oh, wow.
which was really cool. And it's gone really, really well. We've really gained a big following. And then this building became available in Kirkwood. That's like the most perfect building for us. And we signed the lease in January, and then we've been working on getting it ready to open. So we're projecting like hopefully like 6 weeks from today,
Oh, wow.
opening, and then our shaved ice business will open like mid-May. And then I still have my consulting business where I've got different clients that I'm doing fundraising for. So I've, owned 3 businesses. So
It's a lot.
it is a lot. And when you own your own business and you go into different ventures, there's not always a work-life balance.
Yeah.
And it's very easy to not do anything for yourself. It's very easy to constantly be thinking about what you need to do, because as a business owner, you've got employees that are depending on you for their livelihood, and you got to make sure that you're able to pay them and pay, the supplies that you need and pay yourself. So it's definitely stressful, but it's also incredibly rewarding, and you've got to make time for yourself, for whatever that might look like. For me, I set time aside I like literally live by my calendar, and I can't, if it's not on my calendar, like it doesn't exist in my life.
Yes.
And so I will set time aside, so like I play volleyball every Wednesday night in a women's league in where I live. And I always make sure I make time for that, or, treating myself to a spa day, or making sure that I've got time blocked off to see my friends. And it is very easy when you get so busy to not take time for yourself, or to see your friends, or to see your family. But if you don't do those things, your business will suffer, because you're just not going to be as happy. And so you have to have some sort of work-life balance, and you can fit it into any schedule. Whether you're doing something before you go to work for yourself or something right after. So it's all, you just have to schedule it and actually do it.
Yeah. That's great advice.
Yeah, and it's really something I feel over time, we've all been much better with kind of focusing on our well-being, and and I appreciate your example for that, because it really shows that, to be good to your employees, to be, good for your business, you got to be good yourself. You got to be able to take care of that. So I appreciate your example for that, because again, it's good to hear firsthand that, someone with, the success that you've had, and just it shows that's what it takes to do that. Meredith, I know.
It does, and oh, sorry.
Oh no, you're good. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, okay. I was just gonna say I did learn that the hard way.
Yeah.
And I was not taking time for myself, and I was just literally working around the clock, and I had a health scare. That was like totally unexpected, and I was like literally working myself into the ground. So if you can start out with like learning how to hone in, like, because it's you got to learn how to be able to take yourself away from work, and for me it was kind of hard, and it took having this issue for me to realize, like, oh my gosh, I am doing way too much. I'm not taking time for myself. So like, I'm not serving anybody well, so it's really important.
Well, for our students out there who are interested in starting their own business, becoming an entrepreneur, I know that's really popular with the millennials and Gen Z we're seeing right now. They're just very much wanting to go after it and start their own business. And what other advice besides trying to reach that work-life balance would you have for our students wanting to start a startup?
So the biggest thing is you have to do it. So you could literally sit for days and hours and weeks like planning to start something, but at some point you can only plan so much. Like you gotta just do it, and starting small is okay. It's, and you can test things out, and in today's world you can test just about anything. You can use social media to market whatever it is that you're trying to do. But when we started Honeybees, our biscuit concept, it started in the middle of the pandemic. My husband was a chef and lost his job at a restaurant just because everything shut down and they had to close. And there just wasn't anything in that field. And so we thought, well, why don't things were kind of slow for me because nobody was doing fundraising events. So I was kind of slow too. And so we thought, well, why don't we start our own thing? And we, for like months, we're like thinking and planning, and we just decided, okay, we just need to try something. We need to try something and see if it works. And that's how we ended up on, doing the farmers market. Because it's a low barrier to entry. We didn't have to pay, an exorbitant amount of money for a food truck, or, it was $35 for a Saturday for us to go and see if people liked it. And it turns out that they did. And it's just kind of grown from there. And so, I think the biggest thing to entrepreneurship is starting, because you can plan yourself into oblivion, planning and trying to figure out like what's going to work and what are people going to like. But as long as you have a strong foundation and a good idea, and you start and you kind of see where it goes and see kind of where the business evolves of what people are interested in. So I think that's my biggest piece of advice. And it's scary. It's definitely scary to start your own thing and put yourself out there in that way. And so, but it's really rewarding when you do put yourself out there and people are receptive to it. But it can be a scary process. And we're at the point now where, we kind of tested our concept and it worked. And now we're, taking a huge next step where we are, investing a lot of time and money into getting this storefront open. So my advice is to start doing and start small and kind of see where it takes you and be able to build and grow on your successes.
Did you tap into any local business networks there in Kirkwood or the St. Louis metro area to help you, write up a business plan? I'm just so curious about this. This is so interesting to me.
Yeah. So when we first started, we just started. We came up with, we had the name, we came up with the name, and we had a meaning behind the name. We had our product. When we first started, we just did biscuits and gravy. And so we had our name, we had our LLC, which you could just go online and register. So I just registered our LLC for Honeybees Biscuits, and anybody can do that. You don't need a lawyer to do a lot of this stuff. A lot of it you can all find online. And so, we had our name, we had our LLC, we had QuickBooks. So we had like an accounting, which is important. Accounting is very important.
Very important.
You got to keep track of taxes and all kinds of things. You definitely want to do that. But we had like the very basic foundation of a business. And we just thought, let's just try it and see. So we didn't have a full business plan written. We did have kind of a vision, but we just started with the basics. And then now we do have a business plan. Once we realized that this was actually, people were loving it and it was getting to be really popular, we kind of sat down and figured out, okay, what are our next steps? What's our path? What do we need to do to get there? Our local chamber in Kirkwood is awesome. And there's a lot of resources to, other business owners in the community. There's a whole like restaurant group that's part of the chamber that we've gotten involved in, where you just meet and learn different things. And I think a lot of it is you just learn by trial and error. And some things we've tried didn't work, and we thought, okay, well, that didn't work. We'll pivot and do something else. And, I remember like very early on, so we would sell out every Saturday. We would sell out, and we were kind of hitting the same revenue numbers every Saturday. So we thought, okay, how can we need to do something else to increase? So we're like, we need to add breakfast sandwiches. And so we bought this like huge sandwich display case, and which was like overwhelming to me in some ways, because I was like, how are we going to get this to the farmers market? It's huge. But we figured it out, and we doubled our revenue. And then we've kind of figured out other products that we can add to keep continuing to increase our profits and our revenue, and keeping track of like what you're spending, on all the different products that you have, because you have to you need flour and butter and milk and all of these products that you have to buy, and making sure that you're pricing your products in a way that makes sense, that allows you to make money and is reasonable for the customer. And a lot of that is just trying it. A lot of this stuff we did not know when we started, and that is just the honest truth. We didn't know what we were doing. But you figured it out. There's a ton of resources online. There's whole business plan templates that you can look at and fill in your own information. There's a lot of access to resources online. And we found too, just meeting people in the community. We've got this really sweet older guy that helps us every time our food truck's plumbing breaks. And you just end up meeting people in your community that see what you're doing and want to help out.
I can imagine, trying your concept and just like creating these fabulous biscuits out of your kitchen at home. I'm sure that was fun to, test out all of your recipes and,
Yeah. So it started with our gravy. My husband has always made like really, really incredibly good gravy. And the biscuits, we've changed the biscuit recipe a couple times. It's very different now than when we very first started. And we figured this out just from Googling. There's commercial kitchens you can rent by the hour. Nowadays we put out like 1,000 biscuits in a weekend. It used to be we would sell, about 200 or 250, but it's still a lot you just can't do it from your house. It's just the volume of stuff is too big. But yeah, I had no idea that there were commercial kitchens you can rent by the hour that are very reasonable, and they fit all your health code requirements. But we just Googled it and found it. Literally, that's how we found it.
Part of the
Google's an amazing thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know all of these challenges that you've come up against and trying new things, all of that stuff builds your confidence, incrementally. But I know inevitably you've approached a setback either within your business or your life, or maybe another part of your career. How have you approached those setbacks?
I think, setbacks will happen all the time. And they can be big or they can be small. And it's just important to approach them, whether it's you made a mistake and that's your setback, kind of approaching that with humility and understanding, or say, you made a bad decision on, you thought you were making a good business decision, ended up not working out. I think approaching those setbacks with humility and being able to learn from them is really important, because then you know for the future, what's going to work next time. But setbacks will happen like every day, especially when you own your own business. It happens all the time, whether it's an employee issue or a product issue or like a shipping delay. Like, there's always something. And being able to just recognize, like, okay, maybe this part's not working. Like, what can we do to make it better? And just always learning from those setbacks and not letting them derail you, because it can be easy to have a setback or a failure and be like, oh gosh, I should have known better, or I'm negative talk to yourself. It's not helpful. and just realizing that it will happen and you're gonna be okay, because you're gonna figure, at the end of the day, you're gonna figure it out and just learn from it.
Yeah, that's great advice.
And it's great to know too, just that consistency, and just, being aware that, hey, you're going to fail, you're going to mess up, and just being persistent through that, and learning from what you've done.
Yeah. Well, and I, for a long time, I was like terrified of failing. I thought that would be like the worst thing ever. Yeah. And then I failed a couple times and realized,
still here.
And it's okay. And you can learn from it and you'll be better for it in the end.
Well, Meredith, one of the biggest things that we always try to focus on with the podcast is for our students, with your experience here at Westminster and your professional experience, what would you say your main tips for being successful in a career or with your profession after a student graduates?
I think finding success is, and you can find success in a lot of different ways, but being able to approach any job and work incredibly hard in it, and take care of the little things. So when you first graduate from college, like when I first graduated, I was like answering the phones. I was working on Capitol Hill, but I was answering the phones and getting yelled at day in and day out. But it's just kind of part of the like learning experience. And so being able to take, in a job, even if you're not, did I love that job? Not necessarily, because I had to, like I said, I had to answer all the phones. It was not the best job ever, but I learned so much from that. And I think you can find success in anything that you're doing. And every job will lead you somewhere new, and not being too good for the small stuff is also important. Just putting your head down and working really hard, and building relationships is really important, I would say. Also, because you never know. I remember one of my really early bosses said, like, you never know that that intern may be your boss one day. You never know where people are going to end up, and you just treat everybody with kindness and respect, and you're gonna you'll end up doing a really great job.
Yeah. Well, was there anything you wish you learned about your career while you were here at Westminster?
So one thing that, and I'm not sure how you would learn this, but one thing that has been interesting now that I've got my own businesses is we've had a lot of employees, and just effectively managing employees is very challenging, and that's something that I didn't really know how to do until I had to start doing it. But that's one thing that I think would have been helpful to know, is just some of those like very basic business practices and employee management is something that I think would have been helpful.
Yeah, soft skills. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is something I know is kind of a challenge that I've seen that employers are reporting about, is just the soft skills. How do you talk to your coworkers? How do you communicate with your supervisors, your clients, your customers? I think that's so important, is just those communication skills.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Well, we're winding down the end of our podcast. We want to thank you for joining us today. I want to come out to Kirkwood and visit you on your brick and mortar.
Yes.
Do you mind telling us the address of it in Kirkwood? So we can come out there too?
Yes, it's 200 North Kirkwood. and it's called Honeybees, Biscuits, and Good Eats. So on the corner of Kirkwood Road and Jefferson.
Awesome.
So what would you say your favorite item from there is?
Yes.
Well, okay, so we make these really incredible blueberry biscuits, and my favorite thing is actually like a blueberry sausage, egg, and cheese.
Oh, that sounds good.
Delicious.
It's really good.
That sounds really good. And is it just open for breakfast and lunch, or breakfast, brunch, lunch, or?
Yeah, 7 to 2, Wednesday through Sunday.
Wednesday through Sunday. Awesome.
Yeah.
We'll have to make it out there. Grab a cup of biscuit or two.
Yeah, we would love that.
Well, thank you again so much. It was a pleasure talking with you and sharing all your wisdom with our students. We just appreciate, all your advice today. So thank you again, and good luck on the opening. We can't wait to hear more about it.
Thank you. Thank you guys so much.